Happy Friday Eve, everybody. Of course, it's Thursday night, which means it's time to do our injury roundup and roster moves update. And as you can see, just flying solo today. So hopefully I can entertain you. Joe's feeling a little under the weather, a little tired, so he's taking the night off, and hopefully he'll be back with us soon. But for this evening, you have myself, and let's, without further ado, hop into it here. You probably saw the thumbnail of the video. The person in there with the nice bow tie is Arizona Cardinals owner Bill Bidwell. He did pass away this Wednesday at the age of 88. He's been, I want to say, the article I read said he's been with the Cardinals organization for like 8 decades, been a part of it, and he's, alive for just under 9 decades. So, been a big part of that organization. And yeah, it's always sad when you see someone so close, or someone who's been so instrumental in the NFL past. Always sad to see. But moving into the injury side of things here, sticking with the Cardinals here at first, Christian Kirk, it looks like he will be missing the game against Cincinnati. That ankle injury does seem to be pretty bad. As with any of the videos here, or with any of these injury update videos, they're kind of fluid situations. So inside of the description of the video, I actually put links to CBS and the NFL.com, and they can go ahead and you can stay up to date with these injuries. But it looks like he'll miss Sunday's game. Of course, you'll want to check that for sure before taking it as gospel, but we'll see how it goes. In other news, the Patriots have placed kicker Stephen Gostkowski on injured reserve. Rumor has it they'll be signing Mike Nugent as their starting kicker to take over for him. He'll be the first kicker not named Stephen Gostkowski in the last 10 years to be kicking for the Patriots. And that was the last time he got hurt. So it'll be interesting to see if they do go with Nugent there and if he can carry his weight while they wait for Gostkowski to come back in 2020 with that from hip surgery, I believe, is what he's having done. That's still Gostkowski. In other news, in the AFC East, Sam Darnold did return to practice. It's unclear at this time whether or not he'll actually be playing in this week's game. A lot comes down to how his body is holding up. Of course, he has mono. It's really, I think his spleen is the area of interest there. So he's been cleared for practice. Non-contact stuff, he's been with the team this week. Probably unlikely that he starts this week, but potentially the following week you could see Sam Darnold back behind center for the Jets. Other injury news, Kenny Stills is day-to-day with a hamstring injury that he sustained last week. Going to have to keep track of him if you do have him in fantasy football, because unclear about his status at this time for Sunday's game. Tyreek Hill returned to practice for the first time since his injury. Since that, it says collarbone there, but I believe it's technically his clavicle that he injured. Going to be interesting to see, when he's back. Good to see him back in the practice field, but unsure yet about when his full return to game action will be. Alex Mack, the starting center for the Falcons, also missed practice yesterday due to an elbow injury. He's another guy who's questionable heading into this weekend's games. Potentially could impact the Falcons there pretty mightily because they are already pretty beat up along the offensive front. And Gostkowski, Jeff, I don't believe has plans of retiring. He's having surgery, and the expectation is that he will be back for the 2020 season. So they just want somebody to hold down the fort for this year while he's out after having that surgery done. Taking a look at the Giants, some interesting superhuman news for Saquon Barkley. They were saying that he was going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with that high ankle sprain, but he is back at practice, running and cutting. Wayne Gallman should at least get one more start at the running back position. It's very unlikely that Barkley will start this week against the Vikings. He could play. It hasn't been ruled out, but I think more likely is the following Thursday night game is when you'll see Barkley. In other news for the Giants, one Golden Tate will be returning from suspension as well against the Vikings. So some of those offensive weapons coming back online for Daniel Jones and the Giants offense. On the Carolina Panthers front, they finally placed Pro Bowl defensive lineman Quan Short on IR. He had missed the last 2 weeks. I think he had a partially torn rotator cuff was the injury I saw. They were kind of hopeful that he would be able to come back. Was held out the last 2 games due to that injury, so they finally decided to place him on IR. And then rookie left tackle Greg Little, who the Panthers are also beat up on their offensive front. They started Greg Little at left tackle to try and get things back going for them. So with him being in the concussion protocol, he's likely to miss this week. So it's kind of a crapshoot with that Carolina Panthers offensive line. So it could be a rough week for McCafferty having to run behind a suboptimal offensive line for Carolina. In other news with the Cleveland Browns, Jarvis Landry still is in the concussion protocol, and his status is unclear for the Monday night game against the 49ers. Update on Jalen Ramsey is that Jaguars owner Shad Kane has said there's no plan to trade Ramsey. They plan on either having him play with the team or not be active, I guess. I'm not really sure. They didn't offer much of what the resolution would be should Ramsey not want to play, and I think he's pretty dead set on wanting to get out of Jacksonville. At the moment, you can see the owner saying that they don't have plans to trade him, so it'll be interesting to see who budges there. I know the Eagles have come out recently as one of the potential destinations that seems to be getting a lot of buzz. And of course, I think it was, last week before the Kansas City Chiefs game, we were talking about the Lions maybe should make in a move there, but we'll see. According to the owner, Jaguars don't want to trade him. According to Ramsey, doesn't want to play for Jacksonville. Something's got to give there. Speaking of disgruntled players, of course, another story coming out of Minnesota. Stephon Diggs frustrated with his organization here in the Vikings. Of course, Adam Thielen also came out and criticized Kirk Cousins for missing him on a couple of plays as well. It's not a very good situation. They have a lot of really talented players between Stephon Diggs, Thielen, Kyle Rudolph. They're having success running the ball in Minnesota, but that passing game with Kirk Cousins is certainly struggling at the moment, and that's causing some frustration amongst some of their better players who would like to possibly get out of town and take their talents elsewhere. So we'll see how that goes. Storyline to certainly keep your eye on. Unclear whether or not this is going to impact his availability for this weekend's game against the Giants. For the Bengals, on Wednesday, they placed John Ross on IR. He also had a clavicle injury, so originally they thought he would just miss a couple of weeks, but unfortunately that injury ended up being a little bit worse than the initial report, so he was placed on IR yesterday and will miss the remainder of the 2019 season. Taylor Lewan will be coming back off suspension in time for the Titans to take on the Buffalo Bills this weekend. So another player coming off suspension that could be a big impact for their team. And as my father mentioned there in the chat, also not listed here, Ben Watson returning for the Patriots after his 4-game suspension as well. With some of their wide receiver injuries, could be somebody who has a pretty big impact as well. On the Bills side of things, they're preparing to start with Matt Barkley against the Titans. Josh Allen is still in the concussion protocol, so his status is certainly in question for this upcoming Sunday's game against the Titans. So likely Matt Barkley will get the start there. But something to keep an eye on as things progress to see, if Josh Allen's timetable for return might be next week or if he potentially has to miss more time due to that concussion protocol. Bradley Chubb from the Broncos was also placed on IR. He tore his ACL against Jacksonville this past Sunday, so he is done for the season. Taking a look at the Bears, Roquan Smith, who missed last Sunday's game, is plans to play this Sunday against the Raiders. Mitchell Trubisky is likely out, so that would mean that I want to say he has like a dislocated shoulder, and they like think there's a partial tear or something. So he could miss a couple of weeks there. It's not expected to be a super long injury, but certainly something that could keep him out for a couple of weeks, and that would just mean that Chase Daniels, of course, will be taking over there the quarterbacking duties for the Bears while Trubisky tries to get healed up. In Oakland news, of course, linebacker Vontaze Burfict was suspended, and that was for the remainder of the season, including the postseason. His suspension, he's appealing his suspension, and that appeal will be heard on Tuesday. So, at the moment, his 2019 campaign is complete, regular season and postseason. However, he does have that appeal, which will be heard by Derek Brooks on Tuesday. In Dallas Cowboys news, their starting left tackle Tyron Smith is not expected to play against Green Bay. The ankle injury ended up not being super serious, but it doesn't look like he'll be able to play in this Sunday's game. Should be back sooner than later, but unfortunately will not be a goal here against the Packers. On the Packers side of things, it looks like Davante Adams' toe injury should keep him out of the game against Dallas. Aaron Rodgers said something about never counting Davante Adams out, so potentially he could be in there, but unsure whether or not he will actually play in that game. Certainly, if you're a fantasy owner, somebody to keep an eye on, because his status is day-to-day leaning towards the questionable side of things. And last but not least, the quarterback carousel that is the Washington Redskins situation. I personally think Jay Gruden's going to get himself fired, and it's just a matter of time. He's probably already fired. It's just whenever they decide to let him go, whether it be sometime during the season or at the end of the season. But he has remained uncommitted to naming his starting quarterback for this weekend against the Patriots. Case Keenum's been in a walking boot all week. I think it's kind of unlikely and kind of unfair to sit him in there. Colt McCoy, I believe, if healthy, he injured himself earlier this season during the preseason, should probably get the start here. But, of course, they could go with Dwayne Haskins, who they did draft in the first round, who struggled pretty mightily in his first action, as he had to come in for Keenum when they pulled him in that game, throwing the 3 interceptions. So whatever the option is, I really don't think it's going to matter. I expect Washington to struggle since they will be playing the Patriots, and that's, unfortunately, one of these 3 guys is going to be the lamb that's led out to slaughter. Going to be interesting to see who Jay Gruden ends up going with there. So pretty quick injury update there. Again, there's a ton of other injuries, and like I mentioned, inside of the description of the video, links to several sources that we used when researching today's video to help you keep track of those, because a lot of them are questionable. Some of them have been limited in practice. Injuries in the NFL, they like to keep you guessing up until the last moment. I think they don't want to give their team, their opponents any edge there, so it makes it difficult when trying to assess whether or not someone's going to be available for this week's games or not. But of course, in addition to this being the day we go over the roster and injury news, it is also Thursday night, which means it's Thursday night football. And as of yet, I have not picked the Thursday night football winner. I was a little nervous because I sort of knew who I wanted to go with, and as mentioned, I'm 0-4 currently on Thursday nights this year. But I decided not to second guess myself, and I'm going with the Rams away at Seattle. You can see Joe is going with Seattle, the home team here, so should be a pretty good game. If this game wasn't tonight on Thursday night, certainly I would have liked it as my candidate for the game of the week. A nice battle here between 2 NFC West. They're both 3-1, both towards the top of the power rankings. Sort of whoever wins this game will take the de facto lead, even though the 49ers still remain undefeated as well. But yeah, I'm going with the Rams. Going for it. Gonna risk it, even though they looked pretty crappy last week against Tampa Bay. Seattle kind of strikes me as that team that they're good, but they seem to find the way to lose games that they should win. And I feel like they should be the favorites heading into tonight's game. Like they're at home. I think they've played a little bit better. Uh, Everything sort of points to Seattle having the favor in this game. And as my dad's listing off there in the chat, they're 17-2 on primetime, 8-0 on Thursdays. They're a juggernaut. So considering that I used all that logic in doing my other picks, I'm gonna go with the Rams. Gonna go with the Rams because I don't think they're as bad as they looked last week against the Tampa Bay, and that offense kind of started to do some things. So I'm gonna go with the Rams, and we'll see what happens. Might be 0-5 on Thursdays after this pick, but only time will tell. So that's gonna do it for today's video. Pretty short video, and sorry for me just talking at you most of the time. But if you did enjoy the show, please do help the channel grow. Hitting that like button and subscribing are the best ways that you can help support us at the moment. We have a goal of reaching 100 subscribers so we can get a custom YouTube channel. We're up doing pretty good there, having some good momentum and subscriber growth. But if you haven't done so, just encourage you to do so because, again, it means a lot to both myself and to Joe and really does help the channel. So if you haven't done so, please consider that. And I certainly will be back tomorrow. We'll see if Joe returns or not here for the fantasy football focus on Friday. But all alliterations aside, we'll certainly be back tomorrow. So, not sure if not sure if Joe will be joining me or not, but if not, hopefully I can keep you entertained for another video. And then, of course, Saturday, if you're interested in who we're taking the rest of the NFL games, we will be doing our regular Pick'em episode, and we can certainly tune in then to see who we're going with. Joe made up a little bit of ground there, still have the lead. I do in the overall Pick'em, but another good week for Joe's really putting the pressure on me, so trying to step it up this week, but we'll see. All right, until the next video, I'm Kevin Marhine. This has been the Lions Grid. We'll see you during tomorrow's video. Bye-bye.